Welcome, and thank you for joining us today for Conversations with Go On Girl Book Club. We're excited to bring you our first in a series of conversations with Audible, the world's largest producer and retailer of audiobooks and other entertainment. This year marks our 31st year as an organization who reads, listens to, and supports authors from the African diaspora. Go On Girl Book Club is a literary sisterhood of dedicated book-loving, reading, and listening women with over 500 members, 51 chapters in 16 states and 40 cities, who collectively read a variety of genres written by authors of color. As technology has advanced, audiobooks have become a large part of our literary experience. Whether during our commute, at the gym, or doing household chores, we are held captive by each Audible listening experience. Whether the narrator is the author or an actor, actress, Audible provides a literary experience that takes the reader to a level that stimulates the mind by giving the literary work a voice. For example, Go On Girl Book Club's February selection is the classic Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison. It's narrated by the incredible Joe Morton. Audible is also working with some of the finest writers of our time to create Audible originals, audio-only stories that are written, cast, and produced specifically to be heard, leveraging the intimacy and performative nature of the medium. Today, we will be in conversation with Yvonne Durant, discussing her much talked about Audible original memoir, Quite the Contrary, on life, work, and loving Miles Davis, which is narrated by Allison Johnson and Yvonne Durant. Yvonne's audio memoir is available exclusively from Audible. It's an incredible listening experience you're not going to want to miss. Our moderator for this conversation is Renee Washington. I should note that Conversations with Go On Girl Book Club is dedicated in loving memory to Linda M. Johnson, co-founder of Go On Girl Book Club. Feel free to use the chat that you will find whether you are in Zoom or on Facebook Live to add your comments and questions. Your questions will be posed to the author at the end of the discussion, towards the end of the discussion. I will now turn the tables over to our moderator for the evening, Renee Washington. Renee?
Hello, everyone. I'm C. Renee Washington, a life coach and proud member of the Go On Girl Book Club. And I just can't tell you how glad I am that we are all here for this conversation with the amazing Yvonne Durant about her must-listen memoir and Audible original, Quite the Contrary, on life, work, and loving Miles. And I want to tell you a little bit about Yvonne Durant. We bring her on. Hello, Yvonne. After graduating from the Fashion Institute of Technology with a degree in advertising and communications, she launched her career as a copywriter for major ad agencies in New York. Eventually, she won a position at a multinational agency in Milan, Italy. So exciting. Where she was a copy supervisor for 7 years. She joined Audible as a copywriter in customer service and is now an editor on Audible's editorial team. Along the way, she began writing essays and articles that have been published in major newspapers and magazines such as the New York Times, New York Magazine, and Essence. Her essays appear in 3 anthologies. Quite the Contrary on Life, Work, and Loving Miles is her first Audible original. Welcome, 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 Yvonne Durant.
Hi.
Hi. Hi. I tell you, I could talk to you all night. And I know we can't do that. So I have some notes here so to keep me on track, because there are so many questions that I have for you. And I will just say to anyone who has not yet had the opportunity to listen to this Audible original, this beautiful memoir, I highly encourage you to do so. I listened to it twice, and I may listen to it again because there's just so much in it. And so I was trying to figure out, okay, how can we keep this conversation good and contained? And so I'm going to go with your subtitle on Life, Work, and Loving Miles. So before we get into the questions about your life, I did want to ask you about the Audible format, the process of creating the Audible original. It's so beautifully narrated by you and Allison Johnson. And as I listened to it, for me, it flowed like we think. We'll be thinking of, we're in an experience, and we're in the experience, yet the experience connects us to other things that we've experienced. So for example, when you were sharing about your first night with Miles, and then you took us back to your childhood and started sharing childhood experiences. And so that was a really interesting way to tell your story. And I'm curious about how you developed your story flow.
Well, I didn't do an outline. The last thing I do when I start a project, be it an essay or anything, I just think. The last thing I do is I start writing, actually. So I think, and that was a natural to start it that way. It was never meant to be mainly about him. He's a character. He comes in and out of the story. And he also came into my life at an important moment when I just landed a great job. I'd always want to work at this particular agency, and I got the gig.
Yeah.
So I got the gig and kind of got the guy at the same time. And, I just had to recalibrate things. It's hard to stay up till 5 and go to work,
Yeah, you talked about that, and I can relate to that. And so, to continue with this the way that you created it, when you think about listening to someone tell their story, listening can be, a really intimate experience. And what would you say it is about your story that you really think resonates for the audience most, for it being heard, and what do you think how does it make you feel to know that people will experience your story through the ear?
Well, it's great. It's perfect for me. I write the way I speak. And friends often say, oh, I can hear you saying that. I heard you saying that. And that's just how I write. First, I put it down, and then I see what I have. Then I go back, and what I season it. Maybe throw in some alliteration, maybe lean on something, like the pepper cheese. Find a funny word I want to go over and over again. The manuscript, it started as a manuscript. I didn't know it was going to end up an Audible original. Now, what was really great, and that's why originals, the quality is so on point, because we had someone read through the manuscript. So by listening to it, some words went away and some words went on. I said, oh, we're going to need to do that, because you started to hear the rhythm of the piece.
Yeah, and it absolutely has a rhythm. And I did read that you started this as fiction as first. Is that correct? That it started out as
that's pretty dumb. Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to say it was dumb, but I am so glad that you told your story, because even though, yes, for a lot of people, I'm sure that Miles Davis is a hook for listening to it. For me, the actual hook was you talking about your career, because I had no idea that there were Black women in the ad agencies. You know, the audible description of the book compares it to, you know, Mary Tyler Moore and That Girl. And those were definitely shows that I grew up with. And in, you know, looking at their stories, which, you know, were a little whitewashed, I'm sure,
Yeah.
you know, to try to keep it clean, so to speak. But you know, from your experience working with, working with white women in that arena, when women, I'm sure it was tough for women because it was mostly a white male world. And when you think about those shows and what was really going on from a white girl experience, and then here you are as a Black woman, you know, we did have Mad Men that came in and started to try to tell a more realistic story, but still they left out. And I was so glad that you included the information about Caroline Jones, that yes, the first, first executive, Black female executive. So would you, talk about that, in what your thoughts are on those portrayals from That Girl to Mad Men, and what you want to say about that?
Well, of course it was scrubbed clean. I mean, you wouldn't make it past the censors if you told the truth. What happened in the offices, after work, you couldn't run that on television. Although Mad Men, they were quite good. It was on the best advertising shows. For some reason, advertising movies and shows just usually fail. Now, I'll tell you one thing they got exactly right. How many Black characters did you see in Mad Men?
Maybe 2.
Okay, so they were perfect. Great show.
Okay.
They delivered the goods.
Okay. Well, but the Black female character that they had toward the end of the series was actually a secretary.
Yeah, of course.
And I know that was a way that people did start and move up. We never got to see the real move up part for her. But that was why I was so shocked to find out that there was actually someone who made it to executive level. And even your experience, which I thought was just incredible. You know, I mean, again, you have to listen to Yvonne's story, because when you're talking about, drinking during the day, and the drugs, and, all the stuff that you just don't connect us to, because, and I'm getting ahead of myself, but there is this narrative that we had to live out, in which you address in the book, about being twice as good, being better than. There were some things that you did participate in, but then there were other things you knew that could be the death knell for you in your career. So I'm just so glad that you have shared this story, because I do think it's a part of history that is just really unknown.
Yeah, well, I just didn't buy into being a secretary. I think Caroline might have been a secretary briefly. I didn't think I'd be very good at it. And our careers are so easily derailed.
Mm-hmm.
So I was happy to know I wasn't that wild. I said, well, you can do this, but don't do that. Don't go there, And then I always had my advisory council, my rabbis, as I call them. So I was very fortunate to say, Yvonne, can you come over here? I want to tell you something. So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I did want to, also have you talk about your family, because I, came across a photograph of your family, I think from last year. It was a picture of your beautiful, gorgeous mom. I think she's not over 90 years old now.
She's going on 91, and she's an
okay. Wow.
In every way.
Yes, and throughout this audio book, you talk a lot about what they shared with you, and I love quotes. And so there were several quotes that I noted that came from your parents, when your parents, I think it was your mom that said, there's no such thing as can't. And your dad, talked about you keeping your good last name Durant. Don't get rid of your good last name. and both of them telling you that there's nothing you can't do. And one of my favorites was your dad, go on with your bad self, and never ask someone how well they think you're doing, because if you ask them that, they may think that you don't think a lot of yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah, so there was just so much, and so, in thinking about all of that, I love all those quotes and how you and your family had each other's back no matter what was going on. So what would you say from your family of origin experience most informs who you are today?
Well, I'm a product of my parents. I just remember being encouraged, no matter how difficult things were. Education was very important. I remember my father being the first person to teach me French. I asked him no fewer than 20 times, comment allez-vous? And he would answer, comment allez-vous? And he would answer. So, that's important. I remember my cousin coming in from Egypt, and every Saturday while he was here, he taught us some Arabic. I still can remember the Arabic alphabet. So I like language anyway, but all of that was open to us. The theater, we had more books and toys. And I'll never forget one of my cousins saying, I used to envy. He didn't say envy, he said, I used to be so mad. You got all the books and we got the toys. Well, I wanted more toys.
Wow, that's amazing. How many languages do you speak?
Now, I speak fluent Italian. My French used to be much better. I'd like to master that. And I don't speak Arabic, but when I'm there, I can pick up certain words. But don't ask me a question because I'm not responding in Arabic.
Okay, and you have a twin sister, as you share, and both of you, your sister is Yvette, you're Yvonne and Yvette, and you are etiquette experts. And you had the Yvonne and Yvette blog. So how did you two decide to dole out advice on manners, which you definitely could be running that right now?
Tell me about it. It was something that we always talked about. And that was also part of growing up, like the lesson my father taught me, don't ask personal questions. And, we went back and forth. And so we just started writing, and why don't we do this week? And why don't we do that? And just picking up subjects from people around us, going to places. Did you see that woman run after the shrimp platter? Things like that. People give you material.
Yes, because didn't you have an experience not too far back on the subway with someone, saying something really ugly to you on the subway? Did I read that on your blog?
I think it was on Facebook. I was on the subway, and a young lady wanted me to sit someplace so she can sit next to her boyfriend. So I said, why don't you go sit over there? And she started screaming, and she used the N-word, and oh, please, it was messy.
Yeah, definitely needed your etiquette class.
But she's beyond need of etiquette.
Yeah.
She's ill.
Yeah. And so, and you grew up in Brooklyn, and of course, that borough has experienced lots of gentrification. The popularity of it is, off the chain, and it's become its own brand in a lot of ways, and that in ways that were unfathomable when you were growing up there. So can you describe what Brooklyn was like and what it represented for you while you were growing up there?
Well, coffee didn't cost $5 a cup, that's for sure. You went to the grocery store. We had our grocer who's on the ground floor of our building, and he would take a brown bag and do the tally of what you're buying in the store. When we lived in Bed-Stuy, we had white neighbors. So, it used to be mixed back in the day, and there was some good living. A lot of our friends lived in beautiful brownstones. I remember that. And I loved when we lived in East New York. That's when my love affair with Italy and Italians. I loved their family unit. I really enjoyed that a lot. And at first, we weren't all friends. So they beat us up, and then we became best friends. We passed. Brooklyn, I was there recently. It's quite different. But one thing that disturbed me is, gee, I feel safe. And I said, Yeah, to myself, because you see white people, and if you see white people, you're safe. And I
Mm,
think that's a little twisted,
yeah.
that I should
Yeah.
feel safer, because it is probably better police now than ever.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And you also talk about how you ended up going, the school that you ended up going to, and how that happened. Would you share that story?
Oh, you mean when my mother told me that we wanted to learn Hebrew?
Yes.
Well, she would search, she went down to the board of that. I don't know how she got these reading levels and stuff. And those are the schools we'd go to where the reading levels are better. And this one was way out in Borough Park. We were living in East New York at the time. And so she told them we want to study Hebrew. Fine, okay. We were game, we were willing, but it turns out the Jewish students were going to yeshiva. So only 3 students signed up. So that's when I started studying French. Yvette and I started French. So then came time to go to high school. And we both wanted to be veterinarians. So my mother said, well, my daughters have to come to the school. Erasmus offered German, Italian, French. I don't know about Italian. So she said they need Latin because they have to write prescriptions. Okay. So we got accepted into Erasmus. And for 4 years, I studied Latin, which prepared me for languages and made me a better English student. And that's why to this day, I just love words. I can kind of decipher because of the Latin base in many words, but that's how that happened.
Yeah, yeah. And I took Latin in junior high school too, and I can attest to it does help you with English. But where I missed out on was learning the additional languages, which I feel really bad about.
It's not too late.
It's not too late. You don't think it's too late. Okay.
No.
So yeah, so we talked a little bit about, your career and how you ended up, getting into, ad agency work. And what I really admire about your trajectory through that career is that you didn't settle. You didn't settle. There was a story that you tell where you are kind of a little bit upset about this junior art trainee that had been assigned to you, and you weren't really feeling working with her, and she said something to you and you thought she got some nerve. But and when I read when I heard you say that, I also assigned that to you. She got some nerve. You got some nerve. You had a lot of nerve as you would assess the situations where you were. And if they weren't working for you, you would leave them, which I thought was just really pretty incredible. So, and it made me laugh out loud because she got some nerve. It's a throwback. We used to say that. But when you think about, that career and, how you were able to maneuver through it. At one point, someone described you as stunning, and you said, I'm 5'2". How can I be stunning? But when you think about all the things that you've accomplished, Yvonne, are you now at a stage of life, at a place in life where you are really able to own your, what I am calling your live your life to the fullest badassery?
Definitely. And I'm not finished. I mean, it's just, I did what I had to do. It just seemed natural to me. It was not easy. I wasn't always set up for success. Hence, they would give me the junior producer, the junior art director. Look, I was a junior also, but I was also heavily supervised. And that's okay. And at a certain point, I said enough, because I was very outspoken, and I found I was paired with people who were so afraid because they were juniors to say anything. But
Yeah,
I,
yeah.
I think it's just fun. I'm on track. It took a lot of work, but I love what I do. When you love what you do, it's easier.
And what would you tell young women today who are starting corporate careers in particular? Because yes, a lot of things have changed. You address a lot of the sexism and the racism. You had this experience where, someone said, in a group meeting, let's call a spade a spade. And, so while things may not be quite as blatant now, although because of what we've gone through the past few years, they have started to get more and more blatant again.
Right.
But a couple of descriptions that you used as your work being treated as filler and entertainment, as opposed to, you being given the opportunity for the ad work that you were doing to really be promoted in the way that work from white people was being promoted. And then you also talked about, which I really love, this getting lost in the system of layered opinions, that your work could get lost in the system of layered opinions. So, how applicable do you still find that today for, particularly young Black women, maneuvering through these corporate streets, and what advice would you give them?
Well, I'm not in those rooms anymore, or else I would help them. And I think a lot of my work was used as filler because a lot of it was cutting edge. It was an absurdity to how I approach assignments. So I'd like to push it out here in hopes of someone bringing it in. Sometimes they brought it in so much I didn't recognize it. You fight for your work. I was in a creative situation, very different from a lot of corporate America. But when you believe it and get those rabbis, you can push carefully, push elegantly, stand up for your work. Don't be so, and sometimes you just have to say, okay, but I've also had the pleasure of saying, okay, and then they've come back to my work. So that can happen too.
Yeah. Yeah. And looking back on that, is there anything that if you had it to do all over again that you would have done differently? Or, are you the kind of person that's just like, this is what it is and no regrets?
No, I'm just hearing about a book that it's okay to have regrets. I regret that I didn't assess the situation fully, that I just shot off with the mouth. I just should have listened, but sometimes you just reach that boiling point. I didn't know about breathing back then.
Yes.
Just breathe, no, I'm pissed off and I got something to say. But I
feel you.
When it comes to my career, I've done it. I've done it my way. I focus, I want to work. See, once upon a time, you could change jobs every 2 years. So I'd say, well, this agency, they're doing a lot of good work. And so I'd call a headhunter and see what they have over there. And doors were opening.
Yeah, I did so love that about you, that you just say, okay, let me go see what's out here. What's next? And even the salary trajectory, which now, young people now would be like, what? But starting out at $6,500 annual salary, which is what I started out as too. So I so relate to that. And, every promotion, every opportunity that you went to, you increased not only your opportunity, but your income. So.
Right. That's how it used to be in advertising. Everybody did it. And even then I was still not paid as much as my, white colleagues, but, it was getting better and better. And rent wasn't high like it was these days. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think I did read that. Did you move to the country now? Have you left the city? Are you about to move to the country?
I had some bright ideas several years ago with my ex-husband to buy a house in the country. So, he went bye-bye and the house was still there. So there I am in this old farmhouse, spending all my money on exterminators because I wanted zero mouse population. It was a great experience. It was a great house and I still have friends from there, but I'm not a country girl, but I did some things. I planted a couple of flowers and stuff, and the little animals watched me plant them and then they went in and got the bulbs. So, I wasn't very savvy, but it was a great experience. Yeah.
So I'm glad you mentioned ex-husband, because that was one question I also had for you too, is did you ever get married? So, so yes, you did. So
yes, I did.
Okay. All right. So, and you talk about making a conscious decision not to have children. which I can also relate to because I did the same thing. And so is that something that you are still, glad that you decided? Do you have any regrets about that?
No, no regrets. I knew it. It wasn't right for me. There are children in my life. There'll always be children in my life, but I don't live with them. I have nieces and nephews. I'm happy with, just my gut told me not for you.
Yeah. Same. That was the same with me. My gut told me not for me, and I have not regretted that either. So I can connect to that. So yes, okay. So we've talked a little bit about life, family, career. So now we're up to the end of the subtitle, and loving Miles. And that, like you said, that in the narration of the audiobook, that experience, it was in and out. Your experience with Miles was in and out, because you talk about being involved with other men, meeting other men along the way. It wasn't only Miles. And so with him being such a not a consistent part of your life, but a huge part of your life, what impact or influence do you feel that experience had on how you live your life?
Well, for one thing, seeing fame up close was like, wow, this ain't so hot. People grabbing at you, then picking on me just by association. But I admired, he really worked hard. When he was just about to go back on the road, and he worked hard, and he had this, maybe 3 o'clock in the morning, whatever. I couldn't sit with him, but he had a pretty good work ethic, surrounded himself by great musicians. And, but I think the celebrity, I saw that and I said, wow. So behind all those People magazine stories, there's a story.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's happy, playing games, taking a dip in the pool, and I'm not buying it.
Yeah. And so I'm not going to get you to share, all the stories, but, will you share the story about that first meeting with him in the club? Because that was kind of funny to me.
Oh yeah, that was the Cellar restaurant, which is very popular on the Upper West Side. And it was a Mother's Day. And, I was feeling sorry for myself. It was dreary. And then I had the cast on my arm because I broke my wrist trying to learn how to roller skate. That isn't for me either. Children and roller skating, not for me. So I'm sitting there with my sister and our friend also named Yvonne having our dinner. I decided against curry because I didn't want to stain my cast. That would have been nasty. And so I saw from the side of my eye a flash of orange. And then my sister said, she said, I think Miles just came in. And I said, oh, no, he's in his house. He hasn't come out of his house in 3 years. One of his doctors was a neighbor. And it was Miles. And next, he was at the head of our table. And then next, he ate the rest of my salad. He didn't ask anything. He just sat down and ate it. I guess that's a good side of fame. You can eat other people's food.
I guess so. but your reaction to that was what I found funny, because I'm sure it was an experience that he probably hadn't really had that often.
Oh, and I wiped the grease off my lips. My lips are greasy. I'm not going to sit up in a restaurant with greasy lips.
You just didn't fall out like, oh, yes, Miles is eating my salad. I'm so excited.
No. I took that napkin and wiped those lips. Like I said, I brought my lips to a matte finish. And then he and Eric, it's funny, I ran into his friend Eric the other night, and he says, Miles said, why did she start crying? Because I looked at him, we were at the corners, just the two of us, and he looked a little sad, not his other self. You can tell he hadn't been well, or maybe whatever. And I just cried on a couple of reasons, that, and also I knew my life was about to go somewhere. And I didn't know if it was going to be sad or happy, but it really touched me.
Hmm.
And then it took off. And so Eric told me the other night, he said, all night he kept saying, why do you think she cried? And he said, then he would forget it. But she cried, man. Why was she crying? So maybe that's why he called me later that night to go out for a hamburger, and I didn't because I had to get up and go to work, and then the next day for dinner.
Yeah. So as you shared that experience, the the way you were processing it and always being very cognizant of your stance in things as far as how it's going to make you feel, how it make you look, and that self-protection mechanism for you was really strong. As I know you're aware because it's, I listened to this story on audiobook too, Cicely Tyson's autobiography, just as I am. It was also a Go On Girl selection. And as I was listening to your memoir and having, listened to hers, that seminal moment leading up to that Thanksgiving, I was just like on the edge because, and I know you already knew, but it was like I was listening to it in real time. And I was like, oh my gosh, I know what's coming. She doesn't know what's coming. And yeah, it is, just so powerful. And, my heart broke for you, even though this is all past, but just in the way you were, it was just such a poignant, retelling of what happened. And so now since that, since her memoir is out and, yours is out, I'm just curious to know, is there anything from her narration of events leading up to their marriage that has shed any new light for you, or is that just all water under the bridge?
Oh, I haven't listened to Miss Tyson, so I haven't listened, but I mean, she was around and I just assumed they were good friends. I mean, they had a history. So I didn't think anything, oh, it's your great friend is back in your life. So and things happen. I don't want to give it away. That's in,
Right.
listen to the book.
Yes.
Yeah, but she has said some things that I concur. He could be abusive, and she apparently deeply loved him. I trust that. I spoke to her a couple of times. The only reason I didn't put those conversations in the book is I couldn't remember them. But I mean, it wasn't like a long conversation. And then once I called the hotel room and she answered, and I still didn't think anything. Oh, that's your friend. Of course, she's traveling with you. Because I didn't think there was anything physical going on. So.
Yeah. Okay, well, I have to also ask you, do you still drink Brandy Alexander's?
Hell no. Stuff is dangerous. No, I'm a wino these days.
Okay.
Red wine, white wine, sometimes a vodka, maybe a good scotch, but I can't do it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's what I used to have. Brandy Alexander's and nachos used to be my thing. I haven't had a Brandy Alexander probably 30, 40 years. I can't even remember, but I was
and I ordered it in a longshoreman's bar. Boy, did I blow my whole image. Not that I had one in the longshoreman's bar, but can I have a Brandy Alexander? It's like,
yes. Okay. Well, what about collecting small mirrors?
Oh yeah, on my resumes are so boring. When you're creative, they get a little bit more interesting, but my objective is to attain this goal and to reach, blah, 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 blah. My hobbies were collecting small mirrors, jumping rope, and something. Oh, and I did my own framing. Yeah, I used to go to the store, Frames by You, and those are my hobbies. And the woman who hired me showed that to someone. She said, I'm going to hire this woman. Look at her hobbies.
Yeah, so random. Yeah. So what are your hobbies now, Yvonne?
Really don't have any. I think writing is my hobby. I love gallery hopping. I think that's fun. I love the art world. I love artists. And outside of that, the traveling, well, that's not a hobby. That's my life,
Mm.
and I've been traveling more and I will continue. And that's it. I'm not, can a gym be out now? I'm going to the gym, I'm lifting weights. And Yvette and I are competing after her sessions lifting weights. Well, I send my session with my trainer saying, that's very nice. That's very good. I send it off to all my siblings.
I love that. Oh, that's so cool. Okay. All right. Well, I know I can see the chat blowing up. So I know there are a lot of questions. So I'm going to, start having us letting you answer some of those questions. And I just want to encourage everyone to be sure that you head over to Audible to download Quite the Contrary, because as I've shared, it really is just a wonderful listening experience, and it is just so revelatory in so many ways. And like I said, for me, the career, the stories about your career, just I just again had no clue. And so you just don't want to miss this. And I will throw out a little teaser, that if you want to know what the Pussy Palace is and what honeymoonettes are, then you're gonna have to you're gonna have to download this Audible. And if you're if you're already an Audible member, this memoir is included with your membership. And if not, you can purchase it a la carte, or you can sign up for a 30-day free trial to enjoy Quite the Contrary and thousands of other audio titles. And Yvonne, this is for me. I am waiting for the Netflix series.
I can't believe you said that. A friend of mine, my writing partner, we've done a couple of treatments, and she said, this could be a series. Well, Amazon Prime gets, first look at everything.
Okay. All right. That works.
Saying that.
I'm so serious. I was just like, oh my gosh, this really needs to be a series, because as I was listening to it, I was like, this is an episode. This is an episode. Yes, we need to see it.
Okay. Fingers crossed.
Okay, so let me check in with the chat. Oh, wow. There are a lot of questions.
Good.
Okay, so I am going to check in with Julia. Let's see. To the Q&A. Let me go over to the Q&A. Okay.
Good.
Okay, I know that I see them in the chat, but I'm not seeing them in the QA. So Julia, if okay. I think people have been putting their questions in the chat instead of the Q&A. Okay, but let me see. They're telling me to look in the host panel section. Well, while I am looking for that, I do see a question. There's a question that we have. How did you prepare yourself to be so vulnerable and share so much of yourself with the world?
Well, if you're going to write a memoir, you have to come clean. And I have no issues with my truth. It's my story, and I just want to share it because I could write.
Yes, you really can. Yeah. And so was there a special process you had for the writing? Like, are you someone who like candles, or you have a glass of wine, or any special process, or you just do it when you feel moved to do it?
Now, that image of the drunken writer with whiskey is like, you can't write. I know, I've tried. You can't write and drink at the same time. You just can't. The stuff is stupid, doesn't make any sense. No, I just sit down and write. And as I mentioned in an essay I wrote about how this came about, I don't like writing at night. I'll go over notes, I'll read something, but I don't start fresh at night. And I have a journal, I'll write stuff, but nothing that I plan on publishing or selling. It's just stuff.
Okay. All right. Do you feel in today's society, that Black women have more of a voice within writing, or is it more of a lateral move?
Oh, no, I think Black women are killing the publishing industry. I mean, Audible, look at Audible with new voices. I mean, we're really determined to give voice to these voices. I don't see anything lateral. You know, publishing, they make a lot of money off of the voices of Black women, of women of color.
And this is a comment, not a question, but I will share this with you. Someone said, I appreciated how strong you were in the presence of a formidable figure like Miles. You have a clear and solid sense of your worth, and that really did come through. I felt that too.
Thank you.
What were some of the memorable ad accounts that you worked on?
Tampons, tampons.
That was, yeah.
Mila High Life was a great experience because I was paired with an art director, excellent art director. And so the guy said, here, we need a spot. Oh, it was targeted to the African-American market. So I got in on that easily. And we came up with this great idea, you know, of 3 guys in a karate studio. It was beautifully shot by Bob Giraldi. And I learned how to write those commercials from an excellent copywriter who wrote more like a poet. So I studied his stuff. And so then I started writing like he did. And our commercial won. You know, you present a few ideas and ours tested well and we shot it. It was, you know, now comes Miller time.
Oh, now comes Miller time. Yeah,
but I didn't write that line. And then a lot of my things on Noxzema did quite well. I started writing a lot of beauty work, and fashion. A lot of guys didn't want to do it because they thought people would think they'd be gay. So, you know, so some guys, they didn't care. They did it and did quite well. And then I didn't have a problem doing because I'd already had a foundation in packaged goods with food and, you know, the colas and all that. So I did it well. I mean, I'm a woman, you know, I use the stuff. I know what I want from it. And so it was fun. And you get a chance to write glamorously. And I like that. I worked on La Prairie and I called it like writing in the lap of luxury. You just get to use all these beautiful, lush words. I loved it.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember you talking about the De Beers account.
Oh, the De Beers time. Yeah, that was my favorite, even though politically some people wouldn't work on it. But yeah, I wanted to get that ad in my book. So I got it. And it won awards too. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a question to ask you to talk a little bit about fashion as it plays a significant role in the work, how you presented yourself at work, also the role of being a trailblazer at the Fashion Institute of Technology, the importance of and the importance of public schooling. So there's like 3 different things.
A lot of questions. Well, fashion, I don't consider myself a fashion player. We grew up like this. Okay, our mother made our clothes. And we would just go to school, dress. I mean, back then you couldn't wear jeans. No one wore jeans to school. So we dressed well. And I continued it because, you know, my mother believed it's how you present yourself. You get a better chance of being treated better. And clothes are fun. It's great looking great.
Mm-hmm.
Fashion Institute, that was a fun experience. Anything goes. Yvette and I used to put out lashes on and get on that train and go, you know, to the fashion district, read Women's Wear Daily every day. That was fun. My first job was writing for a company that made mink hats. And I didn't have any proof of anything. This man, his name was Mr. Moskowitz, gave me a chance. I wrote his catalog. And that became my love affair with mink.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I remember a moment in the memoir where you asked Yvette, where are you going? You're dressed up. And she looked at you, I'm going to the store.
Yeah, you know, that's how you do it. You know, like this whole pandemic thing, I still didn't go out and buy sweats. I get dressed every day to walk into the living room. It's better for me. I'm not saying that you should do it too, but it's better for me.
No, I am so with you. I was in the sweatpant mode for a little while, but in the past several months, I'm like, okay, my husband has asked me, where are you going? I'm to the next room because I'm getting dressed now.
You're going to the living room today.
Yes, because you're right. It does make you feel so much better.
Yeah.
Okay, now have some more questions in the Q&A. Have there been any resources or tools that have proven most beneficial in keeping your literary autonomy?
Could you translate that?
I'm thinking about it. Because let's see. Okay, have there been any resources or tools that have proven most beneficial in keeping your literary autonomy? So I'm just going to guess that they're asking you how you maintain your literary autonomy. And, you know, from listening to your story, that seems to me, seems to be a running theme of just who you are as a person, maintaining autonomy.
I think the way I live informs the way I write and the stories I want to tell. You know, I like to look at things on the bright side. You know, I go a lot of different places. I know a lot of different kinds of people, and that informs a lot of what I do. I listen. This is why this pandemic has been so difficult. I'm not around people. People are inspiring. You know, I need more than, you know, a show or a magazine. It's my life. It's my life. I'll see something and think that's funny and blow it up, you know?
Yeah, I really do love scrolling your Facebook feed. You know, because you do just share things that I was like, oh, that's beautiful. That's nice. You know, so yeah, I definitely see that. And we have another question about Miles. Do you think the direction of your relationship with Miles would have greatly shifted if you didn't return the night he didn't answer the door on the first visit?
I don't think there would have been a relationship. I mean, but I was mad when I got home. I tell you, I almost tripped on the rug. I said, no, you won't. And all he said was, try it again. Boy, I flew out of that house.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have been a relationship. I mean, I think he would have come after me anyway. It was like, you know.
Yeah, I think it was going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was happening. But I did want to ask you, because I tried to find the song that he wrote for you. He wrote the song for you. Is that something that's published or?
No, it's not. In fact, the last time I saw him, he said, what happens to that song I wrote? And I remembered some of it. I remember how it sounds, but legally, I can't tell you how it sounds. But no, that went nowhere.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And let's see. Okay. You are such an inspiration. Is there an ad out now that you see, I guess, just out in the ether now that you look at and say, oh, I would have done that so differently, and why?
Well, I can't think of one ad, but I see a lot of ads that just don't hit it. Coming up in the ad agency business, you just wrote and rewrote and rewrote. And I worked with people who were so much better than I. So I worked with legends, the plop plop guy and all that. You just want to always do the best. I can't answer that because I'm not aware. Like, I thought the Super Bowl, most of the commercials were overproduced. I like the word, I like the design, and it's so many these effects. It just drove me crazy. Like, the idea got buried in the effects.
Yeah, my husband and I would say, yeah. Now, what were they advertising? Because you get lost in, you're right, all of the bells and whistles. Okay, there are so many people of color, particularly Black women, showing up in ads and commercials these days. Do you think it's part of the so-called reckoning, or is the tide actually turning?
I think it's people reacting. It's funny. A white friend of mine said, Yvonne, now you know that I really like, integration. I believe in it. She said, but are we going to ever see a white couple in a commercial again? Sometimes it seems very obvious that they're in a room. Okay, so we need a black woman. Yeah, maybe she's married to a white guy, and then they have a child. Now, that couple didn't make some of those children. And why is that? Because we are not in those rooms.
Right.
We're not. I love seeing, more of us get work and stuff, but it has to make sense. It makes sense, family and all of that. But it's like, I don't know, needs to be looked at, revisit that.
And there's a question about the pictures behind you, and they want to know, did you frame the pictures behind you?
No, I didn't. This is a diptych by the artist Kathleen Lewis, and I mentioned her in the book. We started in the advertising business, and she went on to bigger and better things. No, that frame costs 10 times as much as what I used to pay at Frames by You.
Yes, well, I have to ask you about your time in Italy, because when the memoir ends, and you share that you live, I think you lived there, was it 8 years?
I was 3 months short of 7 years.
Okay, 7 years. Okay, almost 7 years, but no details. So I was wondering if there's going to be a part 2 to your memoir, to share more about those years, and what has happened in your life since then.
Something's going on here. It won't be part 2. It'll be its own work.
Okay.
But yeah, I'd love to write about those times. It was the best. It was the best. I was recently there for Thanksgiving, and I just felt so at home. So at home.
Okay. Okay. I just want to be sure that I wasn't missing anybody's questions. I think that I've gotten all the questions, but Julia, you can let me know if I have missed anybody's, if I've missed asking anything else. And I'm going to stop myself, because like I said, I have so many questions for you. So, but I am waiting on the Amazon Prime series.
Wow, you're good. You get it.
And I really would love hearing all about living in Milan. That just sounds so incredible. So yes, we definitely want you to do another story about your story, Yvonne. And so I just want to thank you so much, and to remind everyone in the chat to be sure that you do go to Audible to download Quite the Contrary: My Life, Work, and Love, and My Love with Miles. So it is just, again, as I shared at the beginning, I listened to it twice, and it's a beautiful experience. And so it is included in your Audible membership. If you're not an Audible member, you can purchase it a la carte or sign up for a 30-day free trial. So also, we want to remind everyone that there's a lot of information in the chat. And I know you can't see this, Yvonne, but Julia even shared a picture of your mom.
Oh,
yes, because it's just such an amazing. And I loved hearing about your late dad, and there's just so much richness to your story. So just encourage everyone to listen to this beautiful memoir, and to also tune in next month for a conversation with Erica Alexander about her new podcast, Finding Tamika, which launches on March 3rd exclusively on Audible. Finding Tamika is executive produced by Kevin Hart and Charlemagne the God. So I didn't ask you about your editing work, your job with Audible, but Audible is doing some amazing things. Is there anything you want to share with us about that before we?
By the way, I'm listening to that podcast now, and it's fascinating. I have family from Spartanburg, and I was just asking one of my cousins today what she knew about it. We have people like Abby West at Audible. You know, we're very sensitive. There's some great acquisitions editors. You know, we got it. We hear it. We know what people want. And I think we're doing a great job.
Yes, well, them publishing your memoir. That
was the best thing. That was
yes. Hey.
That changed everything.
Everything.
I just hope that I'm bringing another voice to the table. You know,
yes,
another
yes,
voice, another
yes,
language.
yeah, and a voice that again has been hidden. You know, I was kind of, you know, I was glad to find out about your career, but I was also a little mad too, because I'm like, how did I not know this? I'm 62 years old. So yes, thank you for sharing this.
Thank you. This is great.
Yes. Okay.
Linda would have been so happy.
Yeah. Oh, we miss her tremendously. Absolutely. Yes. So, okay. Let me also share that we've had the pleasure of interviewing Abby West, and her interview is on our Facebook and YouTube. So go to the Go On Girl pages to check out our previous interviews, and please share this one. We want everybody, Go On Girl, we want everybody to know about Yvonne Durant.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dream come true.
Okay. All right, everybody. Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.